to have Mary Kay Cabot on here momentarily to talk a little bit of Browns football because we have a training camp date.
Yes.
It's always exciting, right?
Yes.
When you know training camp is going to open, it'll be June 30th. 11 practices open to the public. Of course, the Orange and Brown scrimmage in Columbus. They're going to go to Buffalo for a couple of practices. This is the time to feel good about the Browns, right?
Yeah, until you actually start seeing them play a little bit. Sure, this is where you can be optimistic and you can be hopeful and you can start thinking about possibilities for the team. And I'm very, very interested to see what they end up doing at some positions here. And mainly, Dan, it comes down to quarterback. Everybody knows that. You can talk about the defense all you want to. You can talk about the running game, the offensive line. But if Josh McCown gives you anything, if Johnny Manziel gives you anything, then you got a chance to make up some ground in the AFC North. If they don't, then you're going to be residing in the basement again.
That's what these weeks in July are for, though.
That's
Talk
right.
yourself into things. All right, let's bring in our Browns beat reporter, Mary Kay Cabot, via phone. Mary Kay, how are you?
I'm doing great, guys. How you doing?
Good. Mary Kay, let's talk about Terrell Pryor. Let's talk ourselves into Terrell Pryor. He's never played receiver before in the NFL, but he's one of the few guys in that wide receiving core right now that's about 6'2", 6'3". Does he have a legitimate shot to make this roster as a wide receiver?
Actually, yeah, he is. He's actually about 6'4". So they don't have that kind of size. If he can demonstrate that he can catch the ball, and he's working hard on that right now with guys like Antonio Brown from the Steelers and Randy Moss and actually Plaxico Burress. If he can figure out how to catch the ball, he might actually be onto something. Now, when he said last year to the Seahawks that he couldn't catch the ball, that was a man talking like he wanted to still play quarterback. Nobody's going to admit that if you still want to play quarterback. So I think he's athletic enough to get the job done, but, you know, you have to demonstrate good hands. I think it's going to be hard. I have talked to several people in the league that have said you got to try him as a tight end. So who knows what will happen when the Browns get him into camp and see what he can do. The coaches have to get their hands on him first. You know, they're not the ones really necessarily that acquired him. That would have been Ray Farmer. So when the coaches get their hands on him, they might say, hey, let's try him this way or that way. If he can make himself useful as a pass catcher and on some special teams, then maybe they can consider keeping him around as a third quarterback and be able to play around with their roster in that way. But he would definitely have to show that he can do other things.
Mary Kay, you mentioned it. It was Ray Farmer's decision. I mean, he's in charge of the personnel, but have you gotten any indication that John DeFilippo, the new offensive coordinator who was with Terrell in Oakland, had any sort of say in this or pushed Mike Pettin, Ray Farmer towards this kind of decision, like, hey, give this guy a chance, he's got some athleticism here?
I would have to think that he would have had input in this. I would think that the first person that you would go check with, unless he was the one that actually initiated it, would be John DeFilippo, and I don't have a handle on how it all got started or what the genesis of it was yet, but you would have had to have spent time talking to John DeFilippo before you would make this acquisition. So, yes, I think he was consulted, or he did the consulting, and I would think that, you know, that he might have some thoughts on how Terrell could be used. Right now, they're not going down that quarterback road at all, but you know, it has to be something that crosses their minds, of course. You know, I mean, if you can save a roster spot like that. But first of all, they just want to see what he can do at wide receiver. They're not planning to keep him around as the third quarterback. That's not just as a third quarterback. That's not in the cards. He's got to be either a wide receiver or some kind of a pass catcher, however they might decide to use.
And so, Mary Kay, let's look at this wide receiver group. Right now, in your mind heading into camp, who is the best wide receiver on this roster?
Well, you know, there are some candidates for that depending on how they fare in this offense. In talking to Dwayne Bowe at minicamp, he feels that the way he will be used and showcased in this offense should bring out the best in him, and he feels he can return to his, you know, sort of 2010 form when he caught an NFL high 15 touchdown catches. So it remains to be seen if he can be that guy again. If he can, then I think he climbs pretty high up to the top of the chart in terms of being able to be their number one guy. He still feels like he has that capability. We've seen some really great things out of Andrew Hawkins, but he's almost a little bit more of a role player. You got those smaller, scrappy guys that can do those kinds of things for you. I would say that Dwayne Bowe is the number one candidate right now if he can, get back to his touchdown catching ways.
Mary Kay, so much of the conversation is about the quarterback position, the battle between Josh McCown and Johnny Manziel, and rightfully so. I mean, in the NFL, your ceiling is often determined by quarterback play and your head coach. But aside from the quarterback group, where would you say the biggest questions reside with this team?
Well, we've already been talking about that spot a little bit. It's in the skill positions on offense, the tight ends and the wide receivers, the guys that are supposed to go out there and catch passes and catch touchdown passes for you. And I think that there's plenty of guys that can get you to the 20, but you have to find somebody that can make it happen in the red zone. And, of course, they have Brian Hartline, and I think, he should fare pretty well in this offense too. But you need to find guys. I mean, you don't have the Jordan Cameron or the Josh Gordon anymore that you can just throw the ball up there and those guys are going to go get it and catch touchdowns. You don't have that guy right now. So they're going to need the Rob Hauslers to come through. You're going to need Gary Barnes to get more involved this year in the passing game. You're going to need those other guys that we talked about to step up. That's the biggest question mark. When I look at most other positions, again, besides quarterback, I think they're pretty well set in almost every other area. In fact, I think they're fairly deep at a lot of those areas. When you talk about now defensive line, secondary, offensive line, some of those key positions, they're really great, in some of those areas. But it's just in terms of, they had the 12 touchdown catches last year, and that's just not going to cut it.
Mary Kay, the Browns don't want this impression that there's a quarterback battle, so we're going to pretend that there isn't. Let's take it out of the equation. What battle, aside from that one that may not exist, are you most excited about watching in training camp?
There really aren't too many battles this year. I mean, when you look at it, there are some spots that I think are going to be intriguing. One of those would be looking at Justin Gilbert and that, second cornerback spot. Can Justin Gilbert, come up off the mat and be the number 8 overall pick that he was drafted to be? So I think that's one to really watch. And you've got some other guys there that are really going to try to win that job, the K1 Williams and that kind of thing. But can Justin cut it? That's something to watch in this camp. The other things are, the pass rushers. There are a collection of guys there that can really do some great things. But, hey, can Barkevious Mingo become a pass rusher, or is he the cover guy? Can Nate Orchard, can he get out there? He had 18.5 sacks as a senior. Can he get it done on this level? So the edge rusher position is another one that I think is very intriguing. Armani Bryant coming back from a torn ACL. So that's another good one to watch. Again, those receiver spots, in my opinion, are pretty wide open. Someone could come in there and really take that job over. And then, of course, running back, they've got depth there, but what they really would appreciate and what they would have liked last year is for someone to really step up and get the hot hand. So can that be a Duke Johnson, or will they let Duke Johnson kind of focus on third down a little bit and catching the ball out of the backfield, use him as more of a change-up guy and pound away on first and second down with some type of combination of Isaiah Crowell or Terrence West, Glenn Winston even. So those are some of the other things to watch.
Based on what you've heard and maybe even based on last year, who do you think gets the first crack at that running back job? Is it Isaiah Crowell? Is it Terrence West?
I'm thinking Isaiah Crowell for right now. And I think, I think in part because there have been, just some maturity issues on the part of Terrence West. I think if he can demonstrate that he's doing everything he needs to do to be a professional, showing up on time, being consistent and working hard in practice and studying and doing all those kinds of things, then I think he'll be right in the mix. But for right now, for some reason, I just kind of get the vibe that Isaiah Crowell has a little bit of an edge on him. And again, I think that it will start out that way, but the opportunity is there for someone else to step up and take it.
All right, Mary Kay, thanks for the time.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Mary Kay Cabot, our Browns beat reporter, a few weeks away from Browns training camp. Like I said, this is the time where we kind of talk ourselves into things, try and get excited because the Browns haven't lost any games. No one's gotten hurt,
That's
I don't
right.
think.
Cross your fingers on that one.
Yeah, exactly. Just trying to get yourself feeling good about the Browns. And there are some things, I think, to feel good about, mostly on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think all of them are on the defensive side of the ball because I think Mary Kay kind of hit on it there, Dan. You don't really know what you're going to get with the wide receivers. You don't have a solidified running back at this point. You've got a bunch of different guys. You just don't have that one guy that really pops out. And here's the problem. If you have a quarterback situation of Josh McCown and Johnny Manziel, and that's still a giant question mark, and you've got questions around all of those guys, you ask yourself, who's that guy that's going to step up and take pressure off of those guys or make things easier on those guys? Because Josh McCown's not going to elevate anybody around him, and Johnny Manziel's not going to elevate anybody around him. Sometimes you need other guys around them to help the quarterback along the way, and you ask yourself, who's that guy going to be? Is Brian Hartline going to do that? No. Dwayne Bowe's not going to do that, and you don't have a featured running back either to be the foundation of your offense. So the question is, how are you going to consistently move the football? I know how the Browns are going to stop people defensively, but how are they going to move the ball? I don't have that answer.
Yeah, they're going to try and run this old school 3 yards in a cloud of dust, I guess, offense, and that just doesn't work in the NFL.
Without a featured running back. It can work if you have a guy like Arian Foster, if you've got a guy like Adrian Peterson, Jamal Charles, you can get by with those kinds of guys. But Terrence West is going to be the focal point of the offense? I find that hard to believe. Duke Johnson, little Duke, he's going to be the focal point of the offense? I find that hard to believe. They just don't have that guy.